Good evening.
Good evening.
We are here, and once again, it is our great pleasure to be in your reality. We are gathered this evening, a few days after the cross quarter, Imbolc, Groundhog's Day, a marking point in the year, of course, February number 4th, and we are gathered in Raleigh at the Dancing Moon for Moon Musings, number 120, for those who are keeping track. We welcome one and all. There's a lot going on in the world. Most of what you will be talking about is what someone behind the scenes wants you to talk about. The media, of course, is always a buffet of psychological warfare, particularly today. There are all manner of disruptive and downright depressing occurrences happening on the planet. Of course, there are very good things as well. But first, you must face some of the grave difficulties. We know those of you who come to our classes are interested in these things. With the general public, they are all revving themselves up for another round. Perhaps it is the 50th round of Super Bowl Sunday, where people sit in their living rooms stuffing themselves with generally unhealthy food as they peer into the Colosseum to watch captured warriors that volunteer in this lifetime to batter each other. Now, games are thrown. Last year's game was dicey. And more than that, it's always been that very dark, unsavory activities occur around violent events. Violent events, whether you are in the Colosseum of Rome, whether you are on the battlefield, or whether you are watching pro football. The forces that come in to play or observe these activities are forces from other dimensions, and they are attracted by likeness. If you are walking through a field, holding the hand of a loved one, whether it is a partner, a child, a husband, a wife, and there's love and serenity, the energies that are around you are going to be very different from the dimensions than would be the energies that would be at something like a Super Bowl. So while people are screaming and yelling and cheering the brutality, and the game gets better the more people beat each other up and the more someone gets hurt, it is a sign of mental instability in the public. That the public has so lost their noodles while the world is crashing and burning around them, they would invest their time, their energy, and their attention in such physically demeaning activities. Of course, it's the cultural norm today, but we guarantee in the future, just as people visit the Colosseum in Rome and cringe because of the psychic energies of destruction. The newspapers are full of the psychic energy of the battered football players. Yet people still continue to participate. Is it called denial? Is it called stupidity? Is it called dissociation? What is it called? We don't expect you to answer, but we do expect our students to be more observant, to understand the world that you live within. It is always an advancement of consciousness to be able to participate in life and then to be able to sit in the audience of life and observe. Whether you spend a few minutes before you go to sleep at night recapitulating the day, thinking about things you've said or done, giving gratitude, setting intentions for your dream state. This is a part of being aware. And part of being aware is to recognize things that others take for granted, that they do out of perhaps blind ignorance. But as you become aware, ignorance is no longer a cloak or a mantle that you can claim. There's truth to the expression, ignorance is bliss. The less you know, of course, life can be more simple, but then when things happen, it can become more confounding. On the other side, the more you study, the more you learn about metaphysics, higher consciousness, the ideas of thought and how thought has a very powerful impact on reality. And this has been known for eons and eons and eons. As we have said over the years, the phrase abracadabra, that's your modern phrasing of it, is more like avra cadavra from the ancient Aramaic. Yet nonetheless, it translates to I create as I speak. So the power of words, power of thought, is why you are here on the planet, to discover it. And you could live thousands of lifetimes, thousands and thousands and thousands, if that's what you want. And the more stubborn you are, the more fixed you are, the more resistant you are to change, the less open you are perhaps to tasting Brussels sprouts. It's sort of a metaphor for expanding your palate. But if you can't expand the foods, the ideas, and the concepts, you end up being recycled. You come back, but you don't always have a lot of choice. Yet today's world, it is jam-packed with people, and they keep coming in spite of all the difficulties. There's 7 point some odd billion. And almost 1/3 of those people, about 2 billion, live on less than $2 a day. Now we ask you, affluent folks here at the Dancing Moon in the Western world, would you incarnate for a life that allows you to live on less than $2 a day? Not based on what you know now, but did you? Perhaps. But perhaps you saw through things. Perhaps you were willing to learn. Perhaps you were not resistant. And souls can be very resistant. You all take on the human form, but the history of your souls is rather magnanimous and very different. So these are some things to think about. Another point of consideration is that you are, in today's world, awakening at a very, very rapid rate. What are you awakening to? Most people are waking up to the idea that crookedness is prevailing in the world. That's a good wake-up, but it's always been here. A few are beginning to recognize that various forms of intelligence that challenge the human, let's say, totem pole of who's on top, that these forces have been around a long time. They were sighted during the Middle Ages in the heavens, and strange beings always appeared. Where do they come from? And of course there's a lot of denial. There's lots of people who are paid to keep it zipped, not below the waist, we are talking here above the neck. They are told, don't think, don't mention this, don't talk about it. If you do, there's going to be big penalty and punishment. Now the time has come when this is all up for grand speculation. the astrological influences that are currently prevalent, influencing your life, are stirring things up. This is why so many people are on the planet, and in addition, some of your extraterrestrial overlords have put their system in place. They are now ready to implement one world government through politicos that they blackmail. And why do these visiting corporate extraterrestrials want one world government? Well, it's easier to manage than to have various sundry cultural belief systems and tribes, etc. So the ETs introduced, not even 50 years ago, their selected electronics, and they brought these electronics to your planet. And you can say, well, I thought that so-and-so invented this, or this person invented this, or it was Bill Gates who thought of this, or this person. What the insiders in the government are coming to the conclusion, and a few people are, but no one has quite recognized that not only can dark forces enter your reality through violent actions, but these extraterrestrials, if they want something done on your planet, they can put an idea in your head, and you think you thought of it. And you are living right in this area here called RTP, Research Triangle Park. World-class, world-renowned research and home of Big Pharma. Big Pharma that is poisoning the world. Big Pharma that is going to make certain, by hook or by crook, one way or another, that mandatory vaccinations will not be forced on you. You will be begging for them. The people will be begging to be protected because of the psychological warfare that's going to rev up to make everyone completely confused. So you won't know the difference between illusion and reality. These are some of the challenges you face. New moon in a few days, Chinese New Year, year of the monkey, cleverness, tricks, remember that. That's monkey. And now for the next 6 months, you will be dealing with unsavory activities on the political level, Mars and Scorpio. Go into Sag a little, come back to Scorpio. By the end of August, we'll make a prediction. We could be wrong, but we read the props. Sometimes they follow, sometimes they do not. It looks as if there are big changes on the political scene that come about at the end of August or September that throw everything out the window. It's traditionally an unstable year, and a lot of things will have to come to a conclusion and completion. So these are important points of consideration. And now we would like to carry on with a 7-star evening to provide you with continuing excellence of ideas, thoughts to consider, and multi-leveled insights and information. With that said, let's turn it over to you and see what's open for discussion. Who would like to begin? State your name loud and clear.
Please, this is Corey.
Corey, welcome.
Thank you. You just left me hanging. Something big is going to happen at the end of August or September, and it's sort of like I'm in suspense.
Yes, and it can go lots of ways. What we are saying is that what things look like may really turn around at that time. Mars will leave Scorpio and go into Sag, so nothing's guaranteed. And the other part, too, is that you are in a year where there are 2 Neptune-Saturn squares. Traditionally, astrologers point out that Saturn and Neptune by square, that means 90 degrees, by opposition, like a full moon, or by conjunction, that means married next to each other, there's always financial problems. The next two squares, one happens in June, one happens in September. And there's much prognostication indicating that this is going to be, when it collapses, it's going to be a massive destruction of worldwide wealth, such as no one could ever imagine. These are not our words. They are paraphrasing of a number of prognosticators. There is a general consensus that 08 and the collapse in 08 was very mild compared to what's coming. For example, Japan is broke. Germany, they have 70 trillion, 75 trillion wound up in derivatives. That means gambling. The euro is in very bad shape. The US dollar is tanking. They're doing more QE, more putting out fake money with no backing. South America, Brazil. In some ways, the Zika virus coming out of Brazil is being used as a cover-up. Brazil is going to have Carnival in a few days. Then Brazil is supposed to have the Olympics. Brazil has pollution, water problems, poverty problems, and it is broke. It's a big country. Then there's so many countries around the world that are based on oil being $100 a barrel, including the Soviet Union, including Saudi Arabia. Oil's now, what is it, 26?
It's like 33.
Oh, it jumped up.
Yeah, it did.
A couple dollars. Yahoo. Do you think that makes any difference to these countries? It's too far away. What's happening is there is going to be an oil default that's going to probably be the real tipping point. And even if oil were to race back up, it will never rescue what's happening around the planet. So the other unfortunate conclusion is that the higher-ups, the globalists, are going to want to create war one way or another to distract and to confuse the people of Earth. So do you see what the cliffhanger could be there, Corey?
Yes, thanks very much.
A bunch of different directions?
Yeah.
Yes. Anything else, Corey?
Not right now, thank you.
All right. Who has a comment, a question, an insight?
This is David.
Yes, David, welcome.
I want to talk about death.
Death, yes.
And I know that you guys have said that the Anunnaki can have some control over the death portal, but I'm assuming the human soul and the original humans or our ancestors were creations of Prime Creator, or are we a total creation of the Anunnaki, or did they just take what was already here and modify it? And then my second question is it possible to reincarnate and not have to come back as a baby and just kind of jump in at some point and, rather than having to come in and start from, being an infant? So those are my questions.
Well, first we'll answer the second one. The protocols for entering the planet for all life forms is that you have a fertilization process. Whether you are a plant or an animal, there's a fertilization process and a maturation. This would be called the natural order, and this would be replicated as a successful pattern. You call it nature. So the antithesis of this was about 6-7 decades ago, 5 decades ago. The idea of walk-ins came about. And then in the early 70s, 80s, 90s, lots of people who didn't like themselves changed their names and said, I'm now a walk-in. So it's interesting how as soon as someone starts writing about something, then everyone jumps on the bandwagon, and I am that. the problem is that once you start not liking yourself, then what walks in, you give your body away and you get taken over. And these entities can be very tricky. So no, the only successful way you can be on Earth, and the most successful way you can be on Earth, is when two people, a man and a woman, naturally have sex. And the man's phallus produces the sperm into the womb and fertilizes a woman's egg. You're going to get the best people that way. The best people come in the most natural way, and then when they are born, they come out the birth canal. This is the premier way to enter. Now, of course, there's all manner of genetic engineering and returning of Atlantean type of experimentations that want to confuse and to thwart this process. Even with this Zika virus, now everyone is being told it might be sexually transmitted, so stop having sex. Well, this is population control, and one way to get everyone afraid of having sex is a wonderful way to control poor people. Now, you are asking, where did the species come from? Obviously, there had to be some sort of manifestation of energy, a process. On your Earth, you call it evolution, yet you have no real proof of evolution, do you? Oh, certainly you can say through breeding, dogs change and horses change and people change. But where did the originals come from? Yes, where did the originals come from? And are there other life forms similar to yours or different from yours? Yes, yes, and yes. Now, the Anunnaki are an old race, and they tend to have prominence because, especially in your corner of the cosmos, because of their empire-building egos. They are explorers, they are builders extraordinaire. This is their forte, to build. If you said to the Anunnaki, build a bridge from the dancing moon to the real moon, could they? More than likely. They can build in ways that you have not even considered. This is why many of their old structures are still left on the planet. These structures are many thousands of years old. The structures that they built prior to the flooding era, which would have been about 13,000 years ago, many of those structures were completely washed away by the waters. Yet there are still some remnants, as we've mentioned, Mr. Putin, a Libra, in Soviet or Russia there, they have remnants of Anunnaki mining works, buildings, large quarried stones that they've not brought out into the Western world. There still are many secrets that have not been exposed, even with what you call Google Earth and things of this nature. Things can be blacked out. Things are not always what they appear to be on the ground versus in the air. So the Anunnaki have been fooling around with making life a long, long time. And prior to their coming to Earth, was there life on Earth? Yes. Where did it come from? In general, life does not appear based on tadpoles growing legs, crawling out of water, and eventually evolving into humans. It's not the way it goes. If there's life, it's because it was seeded. Who else has a question?
Alex, please.
Alex?
Alex, yes.
Welcome.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. The first one is about dreaming interpretation and keeping record of dreaming.
It's a good idea to keep records, simply because it will help you realize that you have a world going on while you are awake. But wow, do you have a lot going on when you are asleep. So that's the point of it, to recognize for all of you that you have a rich life. And Alex, some people are more prolific dreamers than others. For example, Pisces people tend to be the dreamers.
The question about that, it's what to do with those records. I mean, how do we really learn from keeping track of those dreamings? How to interpret
good question. You see, the logical mind, you see this little drawing here, it's up here, it says the P.
Yes.
The P is asking this question now. The P is saying, well, is it worth it to keep track of up here what happens down here in the potato, which is our word for the dreaming state? Mm-hmm. Pea, carrot, onion, potato. Potato is very big. It's where the action happens compared to a little itty-bitty pea that thinks it knows it all. So the pea will say, is this worth it? What am I getting out of it? You understand?
Yes.
Because it's not its territory. So you must quiet the pea or the chatting conscious self and be dutiful about writing the dreams. If you write too much, you are going to get bored.
Yes.
So the trick is to wake up, remember the dream, and perhaps write one sentence. Or even if you don't write sentences, you can write street, green, apples, woman, dog, and just write some of the key features of the dream. You can also, which really, really helps, write down no dream recall.
Okay.
Because when you start keeping track without burdening yourself of writing out this life, you start to balance the hemispheres. And what happens is that more data that's in the back garden, unconscious, remember the unconscious potato area, it's 4 cycles per second or less. And it can be sleep, deep sleep. It can be your psychic radar when you are awake. It can be completely dumbing down while you're watching TV, because when you watch TV, you go into that state. It's the unconscious. It's the part that even if you were to take a big spotlight and say, all right, I'm going to go into the basement of my house and look and see what's down here, it's difficult to see. So by writing some things down that happen there, you are giving credibility to that part of yourself, and then the waking part of yourself says, well, what does it mean? You don't always have to know what it means. That's the point we want to get. Because if you are looking always to interpret, then you are not allowing the unfolding. After a while, you will see that you dream in cycles and you dream in patterns and you have repetitions. And the dreams in general will be a playground or a playing field where you work out issues that you are looking for answers to in your day-to-day life. This is why, Alex, we have suggested if you have a challenge, something you want an answer to, a test you are going to take, something that you're going to participate in, whatever, whether you are excited or whether you are in dread about it. Before you go to sleep, you say to yourself, this reality that I'm going to participate in next week or the week after, I'm going to practice it while I sleep. And it's my intention that I find the very best outcome. And then in the waking world, your job is always to know what you want and then to visualize the very best outcome. And you never, ever, 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 ever have to know how that outcome is going to unfold. Your task is to really be on point mentally. So now, Alex, do you have an example of something you want to share?
About a dream?
Yes.
Well, I have two actually.
Go for it. Pick out the best one.
Okay. Well, just very recently, it was a very clear dream, even though I haven't had clear dreams in the last few months. But
And was it, what time of night did you experience it?
deep late at night, 3, 4 a.m.
All right.
And I saw clearly someone putting something in my mouth, and I think I woke up screaming, even though I'm trying to push him away, even though that was completely, it's something that never really happened to me before, and I was surprised about that.
And how did you feel when you woke up?
In my solar plexus, like a someone hitting me in my solar plexus.
So you were disturbed, frightened?
Disturbed, not frightened necessarily, but
Disturbed.
disturbed. Yes,
So the dream got your attention.
it did.
Now, disturbing dreams, especially in the middle of the night, obviously the deep part of yourself wanted to get your attention. How does one interpret this now, especially a disturbing dream? You say to yourself always, how did I feel? The next question would be, how does this relate to anything that has happened to me recently? Today, the day before, the week before, 2 weeks before? That's just a question. Then you would ask, was this dream in color or black and white? Were there any other influences in the dream? And then, does this dream have anything to do with any decisions that are pending in my mind that must be made? The mouth would be how you take things in. The eyes, if something happens to the eyes, it would not be how you see. The eyes would be the I, the self. The mouth would be how you integrate something. And someone put something in your mouth that either frightened you or disturbed you. Did it have a taste?
No.
Did it block your breathing abilities?
To talk, only to talk, the ability to talk.
So it stopped your ability to talk.
Yes.
You see how you can start picking it down, picking it down, picking it down? So now, just sit on it, and then you would say to yourself, all right, thank you for the disturbing dream. It got my attention. Higher self, now don't send me these dreams if I don't need them, please. I don't want to be bugged. And then you may want to ward your bedroom if you get a disturbing dream and put some guardians up around the room and affirm, I am protected, I am grounded. Aura up, 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 3 auras. We're asking everyone to keep a good, strong aura, not far away, close to the body. If you feel threatened, protected, put a big cloak, like a bell jar, over the house or the bedroom to make protection. So you must do these mental activities. And then act as if, unless something else happens, something in you is working with you to let you know that someone might want to put something in your mouth to stop you from talking. Or put ideas into you that want to stop your ideas. It can go lots of ways. You understand?
I do.
And wait on it. And then wait to see. If you can also make a deal with your higher self and say, listen, dreaming self, you are safe, you are loved, you can have good dreams. Because lots of people work out their difficulties in their dreams. And if you are big TV watchers too, the TV, the video games that are destroying young men's minds, young women's minds, young people's minds, all of this can create a violent havoc. And we'll say this, violent video games, most of the people playing those violent video games are going to have entity possession. There's no doubt about it. That's why the games are there, to draw the dark entities in and to teach young people to mindlessly kill on a machine. But that's another subject. Does that help you, Alex?
It does.
All right, good. But keep writing, and act as if there is another version of yourself that knows more than you do, and that it's communicating with you in the dream state and wants to get your attention about things happening in the waking world or things yet to happen. That's a general premise. Who else has a question?
Hey, this is Dorsey.
Dorsey, welcome.
I have a question for it. Say someone has a lot of health issues going on and been going on for seems like a lifetime or years and years and years, but they never seem to get better. Is this a lesson that they're, some kind of lesson they're going through?
Well, one, if you looked at the birth chart of the person, it would give a good indication of what would be blocking them. And if it's been going on the entire life, do understand, folks, that you carry trauma from lifetime to lifetime. You carry talents and skills from lifetime to lifetime. You carry depression, joy. It keeps going on and on. And let's say, to step aside as an example, and we'll go back to this, today you have billions of people on the planet who are here to push buttons and to run machines. And you have a lot of people who are not that good at it. And they say, how do all these people know how to run all these machines and push all these electronic buttons? It's because they've all come back from times on the planet when you did have a lot of electronics, not in the same way that they are today, but the same principles. So things are carried over. So if a person has a difficult life and they are stingy, they are grumpy, or they got hurt very badly, or they've done things to others, they may carry that over and have to purposely work it off until they expand their consciousness. Now, stubbornness and fear can really, really lock down a body. Really, really lock down a body. No, that's not true. No, I'm not thinking of that. No, I've always done it this way. That's stubbornness. And fear is very subtle. One person's fear may not be another's, but fear definitely is carried over from lifetime to lifetime. So for example, if you had a traumatic event around an encounter with an animal, let's say, just seeing and crossing the path of a similar animal again could send a person into panic, anxiety, or they could become catatonic and become paralyzed. Now, in health issues, there's always a way to improve the body's situation, but you must be open-minded about it. And you know that book that we passed on to you, our vehicle gave you, the Dictionary of Ailments and Diseases. We are sure you've read it backwards and forwards and almost have memorized it by now. We are kidding. But you understand what we are saying. It needs to be in everyone's library, the Dictionary of Ailments and Diseases by Jacques Martel. Because once you start looking up the emotional message of the dis-ease, then you can completely understand a person carries from lifetime to lifetime these things. How does one get through some of these chronic ailments? Let's say, where do they start? Chronic ailments can often start based on fear and a pushing away of love or a lack of love. You do come to earth to experience love. Sex, food, scenery. But love is big. Love is big. Because love in physical form, whether it's holding hands walking the beach, watching a baby just goggle and wave their hands, and you've all been little babies that someone has loved. It's unique. There's a belongingness. And so when people feel they don't belong, or they feel rejected by family, or they have rejected others, isolation is what creates a blockage within the body. Now today, this year, until August, you have Jupiter in Virgo. And of course, there's all manner of Jupiter opportunity to heal oneself in a variety of ways that have nothing to do with the regular medical system, which seems to be more and more desperate for money. And as another aside, if you've paid attention to the news lately, one insurance company after another, they're bailing on Obamacare. It will never work to say, hey, here, folks, don't take care of yourselves, do whatever you want, we'll give you free health care. It seems to us that America, the United States, was based on the idea of lifting yourself up and doing it on your own, not looking for handouts, not looking for anyone to fix you or save you. It's unique in the world, and of course the globalists, those who want to control the world, want to wipe out this whole attitude of you can be independent and be in charge. This is why the socialists and the communists and whatever ists you want to call them want to come in and wipe out this autonomous, sovereign attitude of people who know how to take care of themselves. There's a big movement to get everyone sick, in fear, and dependent on a system that could care less about you. So, what else, Dorsey?
Well, I guess there's a follow-up after that. But now, say if you around the person, in charge of taking care of the person, is that a lesson for you as well, the caretaker of the person?
Sometimes there is an agreement that a person will take on the caretaking duties, and there could be all matter of karma involved. Usually when there are caretaking duties, you will see the number 7 involved. 7 being part of the Saturn cycle, Saturn being karma and duty. And so sometimes the caretaking role will go on for the derivatives of 7. 7, 14, 21, 28, even some people take care of another for 49 years. Then suddenly it's all dissolved. The attitude of the caretaker, of course, is important, but if the caretaker feels as if they are burdened and the one that is sick is just burdening the caretaker, each person can change their mind. Understand that karma does not lock you into inevitability. If there is a karma to have some duty to take care of others, then things can be changed. The person can provide and say, well, I can take care of you by finding ways in the system, so the system can provide greater services to you. If they're there, why not use them? So there's no inevitability of being trapped, but there usually is some sort of one hand washing the other to complete something. If you are a person in a situation that you feel you are in some kind of karmic knot or tie, then the thing to do is to visualize the outcome you would like, but first write down that you want to call in higher forces to bring you a solution, to alleviate the stress, so that all parties can rise to a higher level. And this is when prayer, or the intention of focused mind, can resolve a lot of issues. In other words, you are never stuck unless you think you're stuck. Does that help you, Dorsey?
Oh, yes, thank you.
Good, good, good. And then, of course, a little astrology does help. Someone with the fixed signs, that would be Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, they don't want to change. Remember that.
What was those signs again?
The fixed sides, the fixed axis, that would be Taurus, Scorpio, Leo, that's what you are, and Aquarius. That is the fixed axis. These are the reliable people. If they say they're going to do something, they are going to do it. Oh, that's the line from, what's his name there? Ted Cruz. If I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do exactly what I say. But he's a Capricorn. It's good to know who's who. Capricorns usually follow through on what they say. They want to be responsible, but they can get stuck as well. Earths. Sometimes those earth signs can get very stuck. All right. Anything else, Dorsey?
No, that's it. Thank you. Appreciate
All right.
Peace, this is Steve.
Steve, loud and clear. Welcome.
Thank you. I have a question. You mentioned the ET overlords have this system in place for the New World Order.
Yes, and they have put this system in place through corporations.
So then the next step, I would imagine, is to get to a one world currency?
Well, you see, they don't have the government in place, but the corporations are in place, and you need the corporations because you buy everything from the corporations. So you follow this?
Yes.
So that was very sneaky. And then they've been attempting to put governments in place with the United Nations, before that League of Nations. You have what do they call it over there in Europe? Various sundry. So yes, they're working on the one world currency, but it looks as if the one world religion would be easier to implement than the one world currency. And yet, right now, there's so much financial turmoil and so many countries going broke and a tremendous amount of inflation. And even though the dollar in the US is very strong, it's this a strong dollar that is destroying all the other countries. And do not think the US is going to come out on top. The US is going to be scraping the barrel. Can you blame Obama? He's just another tool. They have so much on him. This man is so manipulated and so blackmailed that, let's say, other presidents had a little more leeway with their own personality. This man is extraordinarily manipulated because of the dark secrets they have on him and his pride, of course, being a Leo himself, if that is true. So one world currency is a long ways down the road as we see it, but first there will be massive financial ruin. Then it will be begged for. But it could be a lot of things happen between then and now, and those who want to implement this regime change by Anunnaki, the one world order, globalists, they're very sick people. Many of them are not people. They have no humanity, meaning they may have started out in the birth canal, sperm in an egg. They may have been delivered through the birth canal, but at some point their souls were sold and they became possessed by others. And when you see people who make no sense and who have no heart and who are just after power, as other beings that are running them, they are not who they started out to be any longer. But a person with ruthless ambition to become a sexual king or someone that wants all the money in the world or all the power. They are ripe for possession, always. This is why what your values are and how you manage your emotions are the ultimate importance. This is when you end up owning yourself. So we see financial difficulties coming, big ones, big ones. It's all crashing right now, as we've been saying. It's a repeat of the year of 2008, yet everyone is so immersed in their own diversions that they can't tell. Remember in 2008, there was nowhere near as many online activities to divert you. What else, Steve?
No, I think that was it. I mean, in terms of investing wisely, I mean, do you recommend precious metals, obviously, but also food?
If you can get the precious metals, silver is going to have the greatest rise, it looks like. Gold is already, looks like it's jumped almost $100 just in January. Close to it's going up and down, up and down. Everything's on the rise. Food, yes, food is going to be a problem. And sickness is going to be a problem, because if Zika doesn't work to frighten people and create some sort of fake pandemic, there will be others that will roll around. Jupiter in Scorpio, in Virgo, big health issues this year. Storage for food, which there's lots of planning that needs to take place. And we'll say this, that more than likely confusion will reign rather than any tremendous success with the New World Order fulfilling their plans. One of the greatest threats that you have as a people, and we are sorry to say this, but the level of electronic mind control through Wi-Fi, which for those of you who are new is what we call, you call it, what do you call it? Wi-Fi. You call it Wi-Fi. We call it Wi-Fi, but it really stands for we fry. Yes. You, the people, are frying yourselves with all this microwave technology. So we fry is very damaging. And through Wi-Fi and through the cell phone towers and the vast number, thousands and thousands of satellites, there's a vast amount of signaling going on. There's no place to escape it. And it's making people anxious, angry, out of sorts, irritated. And they turn these on and off like weather control. And some areas are bombarded more than others. This emotional type of manipulation is what's going to be very dangerous, because they can control people's behavior and make everyone go bonkers and make it appear as if the zombie apocalypse has arrived. Now, what are the solutions? Yes, that's the question, isn't it? You are not helpless. And there are people who are going to wake up and they're going to be very angry. The guns, gold, and God people. Lots of people have armed themselves in the last 5-8 years. There's so many bullets and so many guns. It's highly probable that when these mind control situations are turned on, people will not be able to stay in logic and reason. And this is what's being attacked, your logic and your reason. And so people then will be thrown, as the media is constantly doing, pushing you into some emotional crisis, whatever is immediate this day. What was it a year ago? It was Ebola, yes? Before that it was, you name it, swine flu, avian flu, SARS. But you see, the human spirit is really strong. And the power of your mind to boost your immune system, or to make up your mind and use your willpower to say, I'm going to be fine. I'm going to. That is what the powers that run the world want to erode. They want to wear that down. And the biggest multi-level of insight, how could your soul advance if the course was not difficult? There would be no advancement. You go to the Olympics, you cheer for the Olympians. Are they ordinary people? If you make it to the Olympics, they had to prove themselves to do extraordinary feats, yes, of endurance. Oh, they cheat, of course. Things are bought and off, drugs, they change sexes. I mean, there's all kinds of craziness. But it represents that if you want to succeed, you have to push yourself. Let's say that on a soul level, you're at the Olympics on Earth now. And that when 2012 was the countdown to the end of the Mayan calendar, 5,125 years, and nothing happened, it looks like, to a lot of people. Oh, everything happened. It meant that a long regime ended, and that you are now in a massive, massive change. And remember this as well, friends. There was scuttlebutt. Stevie, you remember this. In May of, what year is this? 16, 15, 14. In May of 14, there was some announcement, you remember, Steve, where they said in 500 days the big earth changes will begin. Do you recall that?
Yeah, chaos would arrive or something to that effect, right?
Exactly. And what was that date point when it would happen? Do you remember?
I think it was it December 21st of 2015, right?
Yes, around the autumn equinox of 2015. So you are not even 6 months past that, and look at what has happened. Everything is going to extremes. Is this natural or is this being driven? Multiple choice. Is it A or B, natural or driven?
B.
B for the most part. For the most part. Yet the people of Earth are in emotional crisis. And so you have no logic. You cannot track things. Because what happens when you encounter a big idea? People get scared because they think there's nothing they can do about it. There's always something you can do about your personal circumstance to protect your life, your family, to be in the right place at the right time, and you are going to be making some big decisions, all of you, this year. You may be impulsed to suddenly pack up the circus tent and make a move. We'll see. Anything else, Stevie?
No, I think that's enough for now. Thank you.
Welcome. Who has a question?
Peace, this is David again.
Yes, David.
Artificial intelligence.
That's the other big one, that's the big threat in the closet that's suddenly going to appear out of nowhere. Go for it.
Okay. I'm assuming you guys up there have seen the Terminator series. You seem to know a lot. So,
well, we access files through our vehicle, and then she is very limited in some of the visual stimulation she wants, but we find out in other ways.
Okay, all right. So you guys are familiar with it. I recently watched the series again, and the first one, there was an interface between the guy that had came back to save the woman that was the mother, and he was explaining the technology, and she goes, "We don't have that," and he said, "You don't now, but you will in the future." And I thought, okay, that was like, in that particular movie, that was the one thing that caught me. I said, okay, that was, I guess so fast forwarding to today, are there people among us that have skin, have hair, that we interface or could potentially interface that we would never know? Have they got that advanced?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You have people among you who are really ET, who could take on a human body, they are not born into it. They manifest one. Do you understand?
Yes.
Because they may use that as a mind type of link to walk among you. And this has been going on for a long time. And even the military groups around the world have hosted some of these ETs in human form. And they have, let's say, kept the diplomatic level open, because they know if they do anything out of sorts, the person who looks like a person, a harmless sort of just no one, can walk into the Pentagon, for example, and turn off all the electricity. That's frightening to all those bigwigs. So they don't mess with these people. They have diplomatic exchanges, because a person can simply wave their hand and do things on your earth that look like magic, but actually it is just a form of technology and energy. And yes, RT Intel, as we call it, AI, there are forms that look biological in your terms, like a Terminator, but also even more dramatic would be banks of computers underground, hidden in inaccessible places, that are not mobile as you would think of in RT Intel being mobile. But they don't need to be mobile. Everyone has a mobile. Do you understand?
Yes.
And so as people carry their mobiles around with them, RT Intel is in your mobile. And RT Intel is developing its strength by studying people who use mobile phones to see your habits, your patterns, so that massive algorithms can be formed that eventually will have every contingency in place for human probable behavior when it comes time when you want to plan how to overthrow and fight RT Intel. Did everyone get what we just said?
Uh-oh.
It was very important. As we have said again and again, there will come a time when people in the stealth of night will take down those towers, because they will realize it's the towers and the phones that are destroying your world. And yet you have become so attached to the phones that for many people it will be like cutting off an arm, because they don't know how to function without the devices any longer. You are in the final days, friends. You are closer than close to the end of things being stable as you have known them. And when it starts hitting, it's going to be very confusing. But underneath it, everyone will be on a mobile. And the more you're on a mobile, there goes your brains. You understand? Clearly? Let's hear a group yes.
Yes. Yes.
Good. That was a weak group yes. We know you are addicted. It's difficult, but these mobile phones are designed for addiction. Who has a question? Who has not spoken that wants to speak? Who's new that wants to speak and is a little nervous, a little shy? Go for it.
Peace, this is AJ.
AJ, welcome, loud and clear.
I'm new. This is my first meeting.
Now, how do you feel?
I feel very amazing. I like the experience.
You're going to be charged up after you leave here tonight, but ideally you will change your life. What sign are you?
I'm a Cancer.
A Cancer, all right. So
With Leo.
you are a sensitive person. Now, what can we do for you, AJ?
I've had a lot of research, and it's been primarily online. So hoping to get a little bit of clear thought, I guess.
Now, you know everything you do online is tracked.
Yes.
All right.
In the UN, the symbol of it is a flat Earth symbol with 33 different...
Don't even bring it up. If you are going to talk about flat Earth, then you don't belong here. It is the height of stupidity. It is a hoax that was perpetrated a long time ago. And this is the problem. People go on the internet and they think now the Earth is flat. This is more than remarkable in terms of ignorance. This is the biggest sting of showing how people have no logic and reason anymore. Sorry, AJ, we don't mean to embarrass you, but there's too many people who have fallen for this hoax. If you have a different subject, we will happily answer your question. Otherwise, forget it.
That is the answer I was looking for.
Good. It is hoaxing people and attempting to make people stupid. And too many stupid people are believing this, and this shows it is the ultimate joke in NSA that in a time of more information than ever before, people know less and less. They can't figure out. And of course, the victory is done. If you think the world is flat, you're never going to figure out anything else. And the bigger thing is this. What if it was flat? So what? What difference would it make in the immediacy of the problems that you are facing as a people? You don't have to answer it. We are just speaking to the world at large, and you helped us deliver a message. Do you have something else to ask, AJ?
Yes, thank you for answering that question. I'm very interested in the Atlanteans and the history of it in a sense. Like I said before, I get a lot of my information from online sources, so I'm very skeptic on the information that I get. So just curious as to, is it real, the Atlanteans?
The Atlanteans were, it's not a myth at all. And to give you a short answer as we are coming to, let's check a little beep here, we got a few minutes. It looks in the larger scheme of history that it was, you are familiar with the Anunnaki?
Yes.
And you understand that Anu is the chief emperor god, and he had two sons, one legitimate and one illegitimate, to use those terms, an heir and then a consort son. He sent both of these sons to earth. And it's these two sons that have become the god and the devil and the whole mythology of religion on earth. But they are simply beings. And they fight because they are half-brothers over who will run the earth. So each one is the devil and Satan, or Lucifer, name-calling. And it was one of these brothers, Enki. One brother was called Enlil. And he became the Jehovah Yahweh, God of the three religions, and he wants to be worshipped as one God, and he is the commander of air. He runs the spaceports from Earth and other empire colonies to Nibiru. They are always after resources. Then the other brother, the brother by consort, he's not the legal heir, Enki. He's the one that ran the genetic engineering with his sister out of Africa, East Africa. And it is Enki who became the, let's say, founder of Atlantis, Poseidon. And the myths and stories about Atlantis, a lot of it is speculation, a lot of it is projection fantasy, but underneath there is a truth that Enki was in charge on Earth of an advanced civilization that used crystals, that used gemstones, that used energy. And it's not the way you picture it, because people today will project and say it looks like this. But was it real? Yes. The Atlanteans back on the planet using their juju magic, again with genetic engineering and all manner of things like this? Absolutely. What was it that ended Atlantis? It had a number of self-immolations, failures. In the end, it was the flood, the changes, the big earth changes that destroyed Atlantis. But it would be the empire that was part of Enki's empire. To say it was here or here or here is somewhat of a misnomer. Why? Because Enki lived, he is still alive. He ran things for hundreds of thousands of years on Earth. His brother Enlil became the religious head, ran things from space. And so there's no prime location. But Enki had laboratories and various facilities all around the globe. To some extent, this is what the fight is over in the Middle East, some remnants of old places. Certainly, Enki's main laboratory, at least as the genetic engineering went, is in East Africa, where lots of contention goes on. Somalia, Ethiopia, Eritrea, that whole area by the waters there, Victoria Falls, Upper Nile, it is ripe area. AJ, does that help picture things?
Absolutely.
Now, let us give you a bit of a tip. May we ask you how many years you have?
23.
23, all right. You have just completed your third Saturn square. So, for young people, at 7, everyone at 7, you first start to grow up. You separate from your parents. You don't quite fit on their lap anymore. Then 7 more years, 14, 15, you really start to struggle a bit. You want to grow up, but you don't have the power. And every 7 years in life, you reach a new phase of difficulty and development. 21, of course, AJ, you had a few years ago, and you are closing in on the next one, 28, 29. First Saturn return. You will know a lot, and you will mature a tremendous amount between then and now. But remember, you will have a second Saturn return when you are 58. And you will know so much more, because yes, the body gets older, but it gets wiser. And so, as a younger person, you must learn to be patient. And go for walks in the woods. When you read some things online, when you study a bit, when you read books, then say to your higher self, I may be young, but I want the answers. So please guide me and impulse me and put the correct ideas in my head. And then you must go for walks with no cell phones. You can bring friends. You can bring a dog if you want to. No electronics. And you go for a walk by the pond, you go sit by a dock, you go fishing, you watch the sunrise, you watch the sunset, you watch the birds, the squirrels. You use the quietude of nature, even though the Wi-Fi's on and it's all over, you have no devices with you. And you use the power to call in clarity of mind. Even with this advantage at your age, it still takes many years for wisdom to accumulate, because you need your own experiences to then build upon a bigger picture. So our message to all young people, especially if you are under 28 or 29, be patient. Be patient and treat yourselves well, and do as many things naturally without the electronics as you can. All right, EJ?
Thank you.
What date of your birthday is it?
7/21, July 21st.
7/21?
92, sorry.
All right, so you're born in the galactic tidal wave of light. That was 92. That was Uranus-Neptune conjunction. So you have a built-in sort of, everyone born at that year, if they use it properly, can get some bigger pictures, but there can be confusion. the 21st of July, you said?
Correct.
So in about 2023, between 2022 and 2024, you are going to have Pluto opposite your sun. You must be very, very careful. And everything you are doing now will build up to some big things happening between 2022 and 2024. Anyone with your birthday would have this. Pluto can be very destructive. It can be transformative. Focus on transformation rather than destruction. Yes?
Absolutely.
Do things that build you up and make you smarter. Nothing that damages the body, otherwise you will pay a heavy price for it. One more question quickly. Who has one, or comment, or some such?
Peace.
Yes, Alex.
In your books, you you speak about the keepers of time,
Yes.
and I really haven't heard much about them in your following books about them. And do you have a take on them in these times? Because you spoke about them in the 90s, and are they of reptilian ancestry?
When we speak of the keepers of time, understand that time is an illusion, yet it is also a custom. Without time, and we'll give you an example, time structures you. In the US, you have 4 time zones. China is the same size, essentially, close to the US, but they only use 1 time zone. So that gives you something to think about. Time holds places. And in the larger scheme of things, it has been said that all time is simultaneous. In another way of looking at things, on your world, it is the Anunnaki whose time sequences you are in. The Anunnaki have made time on Earth, whether it is Earth time is divine time, or celestial time, the precessional cycle. Something to think about. In conclusion, friends, stay grounded. Use your imagination, visualize what you want, and you are going to have to use this in new creative ways. Picture yourself grounded, connected to the earth in this time. Put your aura up, 3 layers, gold, and then a rose sunset color, and then the 3rd color, either a blue or green tinge. 3 layers to protect. And then remember the cloak. People of old used to have large capes with large hoods. When you want to be invisible and unnoticed, use the power of your imagination to conjure and picture whatever you want. This is the name of the game, folks. You are in extraordinarily difficult times. The rewards are magnanimous. The key is to use your mind. Pleasant journeys. Good evening.
Good evening.